Last week, medicine. This week, everything else. Which is too large a subject, and I know it, and I am going to do the best I can with it. I want to start with the computer, because the computer is the example that contains the most. It starts small. It starts in 1949 as something I can describe to you with specific dimensions and specific costs and specific limitations. And then it becomes something that I cannot describe to you from 1949, because the 1949 version of me does not have the concepts to describe the 2026 version. And then I will tell you about flying, and about the telephone, and about the moon, and about some smaller things that are actually not smaller at all. In 1949, the computer exists. This is more than I would have said 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the computer was theoretical, or military, or both. Now there are computers operating, real machines, physical objects running in specific locations. Let me describe the computers that exist in 1949. ENIAC, the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, which began operations in 1945, is currently one of the most famous computers in the world. It was built at the University of Pennsylvania. It weighs approximately 27 tons. It occupies approximately 1,800 square feet, a large room or a small house. It contains approximately 18,000 vacuum tubes. It consumes approximately 150 kilowatts of electricity, which is enough electricity to power a small neighborhood. It can perform approximately 5,000 addition operations per second. This is the most powerful computing machine in the world in 1949. Now let me describe what the device is. The device that arrived on my doorstep in February and that I used for 4 months. The device weighs approximately 7 ounces. It fits in a coat pocket. It requires no special room, no building, no dedicated power source beyond a small battery that can be recharged from a small power bank. The device's computing power? I found in the device's information the specific comparison. The device is estimated to be many millions of times more powerful than ENIAC. Not thousands, not millions in the vague sense of many, in the specific, measurable, comparable sense. The processing power that fills a room and weighs 27 tons in 1949 is exceeded by factors that I cannot write as a number that means anything. It is too large to carry the meaning that numbers are supposed to carry. The 27-ton room and the 7-ounce pocket object. Both computers. The same concept, separated by 77 years. I have been sitting with this since I found it in the device. And what I keep arriving at is, there is something called Moore's Law, described in the device, named after Gordon Moore, a computer scientist who in 1965 will observe that the number of transistors on a computer chip doubles approximately every 2 years. This doubling continues. For decades, the power of the device accumulates through the specific exponential logic of doubling every 2 years. Double once, 2 times as powerful. Double 10 times, 1,000 times as powerful. Double 20 times, 1,000,000 times as powerful. Double 40 times, 1 trillion times as powerful. 40 doublings at 2 years each, 80 years. Between ENIAC and the device, approximately 77 years. The math works out. This is what doubling looks like over decades. I cannot fully describe what the computer becomes, because the description requires concepts I don't have. But I can try to describe the scale. In 2026, there are approximately 5 billion smartphones in the world. 5 billion. The world has approximately 8 billion people. More than half the people on Earth carry, in their pocket, a device that is many millions of times more powerful than the most powerful computer in the world in 1949. The average person in 2026 carries more computing power than existed on Earth in 1949. This sentence requires repeating. The average person in 2026 carries, in their pocket, more computing power than existed on the entire planet in 1949. Let me connect this to what I described in the device series. When I opened the device and used the search function and found 4.7 billion results for New York, that search was performed in a fraction of a second. The retrieval of information from a database containing billions of items, sorted and ranked and delivered to me in less than a second. ENIAC, in 1949, can perform 5,000 addition operations per second. The device performs billions of operations in the time it takes me to read a single word. These are the same thing. Addition and reading and search and retrieval are all at the bottom the same thing. Computations. More computations per second than I can imagine. In something that fits in a pocket. I flew to Boston in March 1948. I described this in episode 2 of First Times. The DC-3, the turbulence, the view of New York from above, the specific quality of being in the air at 8,000 feet. I described it as astonishing. I described my belief that commercial flight, while likely to become more common, would remain a specific kind of experience, reserved for certain distances, certain purposes, certain people. I want to tell you how wrong I was. In 1949, there are approximately 17 million commercial air passengers in the United States annually. Not a small number, but a number of the scale of people who take a significant journey, who have a specific reason to fly, who have chosen this mode over the train or the ship. In 2026, approximately 900 million air passengers in the United States annually. Almost 1 billion per year. The devices showed me images, photographs from airports in 2026, which are enormous buildings. The specific architecture of institutions that process enormous numbers of people continuously. Lines of people, security checkpoints, gates. The specific choreography of moving tens of thousands of people through a single building and onto aircraft every day. The aircraft themselves. The DC-3 that took me to Boston holds approximately 21 passengers. The primary commercial aircraft in 2026, the Boeing 737 in its various versions, holds between 130 and 230 passengers. The largest aircraft, the Airbus A380, which the device showed me, holds up to 853 passengers. 853 people in one aircraft. More people than live on some entire city blocks. Flying through the air. And the prices. The specific cost of a flight in 2026, measured against the average wage, is a fraction of what it was in 1949. Flying in 1949 is expensive, is reserved for the privileged, is not the ordinary person's mode of travel. In 2026, ordinary people fly. Not everyone. Not everyone can afford it. The inequality I described in the medical episode persists in transportation. But ordinary people, in significant numbers, fly for vacation, for business, for visits to family. The air has become ordinary. I flew to Boston and thought I had seen something rare. The air is full of people. On July 20th, 1969, 20 years from now, 2 human beings will walk on the moon. I'm going to say this again. 2 human beings will walk on the moon. Not land on it. Walk. Get out of the spacecraft, put their feet on the surface of the moon, look back at the Earth, and walk. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin. The moon, which has been in the sky above New York every night for as long as New York has existed, above the East River, and above Manny's, and above 52nd Street, and above the Brooklyn Bridge. The moon that I can see from my window on clear nights, The moon that every person who has ever lived on this part of the planet has looked at. Human beings will walk on it. I am trying to describe my reaction to finding this in the device, and I am finding it more difficult than most things I have tried to describe. I have been trying to imagine what July 20th, 1969 will feel like for the people who are alive to experience it. Whether it will feel like the specific extraordinary that it is, or whether it will feel somehow inevitable, the next step in a sequence of steps that will have been building toward it for 20 years. The device showed me that it was watched on television by approximately 650 million people. 650 million people watching on television as human beings walked on the moon. In 1949, the television at the Kozlowskis has a 7-inch screen, and 20 people know about it in my immediate circle. In 1969, 650 million people watching the moon, watching people walk on the moon. I have been at Manny's for perhaps an hour today, and I keep returning to this, and I keep failing to find the scale of it. Human beings will walk on the moon. I described Helen in episode 6 of First Times. Helen, the operator who handled 300 calls per shift, who routed voices across the country in 4 milliseconds, who made the telephone network function through the specific human labor of the switchboard operator. The telephone in 1949 requires Helen. Not Helen specifically, any operator, the human being who manages the routing, who makes the connection, who says, "Number please," and then makes the number possible. What happens to Helen between 1949 and 2026? Automation. The specific human labor of routing telephone calls is automated, gradually, through the 1950s and 1960s, as dial telephone systems are extended to more and more exchanges. The operator becomes less necessary for local calls, then for long-distance calls, then for most calls entirely. Helen's job, in the specific form it exists in 1949, largely disappears. I described the operator system in First Times with admiration for what Helen did, and I want to be honest about what happens to what Helen did. It becomes automated, and the people who did it are no longer needed to do it. This is the pattern of technology throughout what the device showed me. Technology creates, and technology destroys. The jobs that the technology destroys are visible because they were there, and now they are not. And the jobs that the technology creates are not always visible in advance. What the telephone becomes by 2026. The smartphone, which I have described throughout the device series, and which I will not fully re-describe. But I want to note one specific thing about the telephone's evolution that the device showed me. In 1949, the telephone connects two people who are each at a specific location where there is a telephone. In 2026, the telephone is carried by the person. The telephone is the person's, moves with the person, is available wherever the person is. Not the location has a telephone. The person has a telephone. This shift, from the telephone being a location-based tool to a person-based tool, is, I think, one of the most significant social changes the telephone produces. When the phone is at your location, you are reached there. When the phone is on your person, you are reachable everywhere. Everywhere. All the time. What this produces? I will leave to the people who will live it. But I have been thinking, since I found this in the device, about what it means to be reachable everywhere, all the time. Whether this is the full liberation it sounds like. Whether something is lost when the specific quality of being unreachable in certain spaces, the quality that Connolly's bar has on a Saturday evening when I am with Jack and the outside world is outside, when that quality disappears. The device showed me that this question, What does constant reachability do to people? Is one that 2026 is actively grappling with. They have not resolved it. I described the television in episode 1 of First Times. The 7-inch screen, the flickering image, Mr. Kozlowski on the roof adjusting the antenna, the specific newness of it, this thing that had just arrived, this small box showing moving images in a living room. The television in 1949, approximately 1 million sets in the United States. In 1953, approximately 26 million. In 2026, approximately 120 million households in the United States have television. The devices showed me multiple televisions per household, typically. The television in the bedroom, in the kitchen, in the living room. But this is the less interesting development. The more interesting development. The television stopped being a box in the living room and became a stream. The device showed me what streaming is. I described it in the Device series episode on YouTube. Any content, anytime, on demand. Not the television schedule, not the specific Tuesday at 8 when the show airs. Whatever you want, whenever you want it. The entire history of filmed content, every film, every television program, every documentary, available to anyone with the device at any moment. The specific appointment, the gathering of the household at a specific time to watch a specific thing, which I described as one of the television's gifts in First Times, the shared attention in the same room. This becomes optional. You can still gather. You can still watch together. You don't have to. The technology that created the shared experience makes the shared experience optional. And the television screen itself changes completely. The 7-inch screen becomes, by 2026, the standard television is perhaps 55 to 75 inches, not 7, 55 to 75. Flat, thin as a picture frame, hanging on the wall. The 7-inch box that required Mr. Kozlowski on the roof has become a picture frame on the wall that receives everything ever filmed through the air without an antenna. The Internet. I am going to try to describe the Internet, and I am going to fail, and the failing is honest. The Internet is the connection of every computer to every other computer through a global network, such that any computer can communicate with any other computer and can access information stored on any other computer. This is the sentence. The sentence is insufficient. Let me try to make it specific. In 1949, if I want to know the population of Peru, I go to the library. The library has an encyclopedia. The encyclopedia was printed in a specific year. If the information in the encyclopedia is outdated, I cannot easily update it. The process of finding the information takes time. Travel to the library, location of the encyclopedia, reading of the relevant entry. In 2026, if someone wants to know the population of Peru, they touch the screen of the device and type Peru population, and the answer appears in a fraction of a second. Not from a library, from the Internet. From servers that contain this information and that share it with any device connected to the network. The information is always current. The information is available from anywhere. The information takes less time to retrieve than it takes to form the question. And it is not just the population of Peru, it is everything. Every fact that has been written down and placed on the Internet. Every scientific paper, every newspaper, every government document, every book that has been digitized, every record, every map, every photograph, every piece of music, every film, every conversation that has been recorded and preserved. The Internet is the aggregation of everything humanity has thought worth preserving in digital form. I described this in episode 4 of the Device series, the 4.7 billion results for New York. But I did not fully describe what the Internet is, because in episode 4, I was discovering it, and the discovery was the content. Now I want to say what it is. The Internet is the largest library ever built, and the smallest library ever built, both simultaneously. Largest, more information than any previous human institution has contained. More than the Library of Alexandria, more than the British Museum, more than the Library of Congress, more. Smallest, accessible from a pocket. I want to step down from the very large things, the moon, the internet, the smartphone, and describe some smaller things. Not smaller in importance, smaller in drama, but things that changed daily life without announcing themselves as revolutionary. The refrigerator. In 1949, the refrigerator exists. In my apartment, a refrigerator. I am fortunate to have one. In 1949, approximately 80% of American homes have a refrigerator. This seems like a high number until I tell you what refrigerators were before the mechanical refrigerator. The icebox. The icebox, an insulated box with a compartment for a block of ice, delivered regularly by the iceman, that keeps food cold by proximity to the ice. When the ice melts, the food warms. You buy ice regularly. You plan your food around ice delivery. The mechanical refrigerator changed this, made cold reliable, available, not dependent on ice delivery, not something you manage. The refrigerator just runs. In 2026, the refrigerator has become the refrigerator of 2026. Same concept. The specific differences: larger capacity, more energy efficient, and the one that strikes me as funny in the specific way that accurate descriptions of the future are sometimes funny. The refrigerator in 2026 is, in some models, connected to the internet. The refrigerator is on the internet. Not because the refrigerator needs to be on the internet, because by 2026, connecting things to the internet is something people do, and someone decided the refrigerator should be connected. And so there are refrigerators that can tell you what is in them when you are at the grocery store, that can suggest recipes based on their contents. The refrigerator knows what it contains. The refrigerator suggests what to cook. I have been trying to decide what Goldstein would think of this. Goldstein, who knows what I want before I ask, who has been doing what the algorithm will do with 20 years of personal knowledge instead of data. Goldstein's knowledge of me: richer, warmer, specific. The refrigerator's algorithm. Available at 3 in the morning when Goldstein is not. Both useful, different.